Is canning really worth it? I mean, look at all this stuff. Hey folks, welcome back to the Rockin' Sea Homestead. My name is Lance. I want to welcome you to our channel. And if you're new here and you find this interesting or you want a little bit more of it, there's a subscribe button right down there. Click it, ring the bell so you don't miss the next video. So let me ask you a question. Is canning really worth it? As you can see, I have a lot of stuff in front of me, but before we get into this stuff, let me just kind of go over some reasons why some people like to can. So the reason why people can, I have it broken down in about 3 different sections here, kind of main subcategories. The first one is, for health reasons. Some people may have diabetes, some people may have high blood pressure, some people may have an allergic reaction to certain kind of vegetables or a certain chemical that you put in there. So being able to can your own food, number one, you know how it was grown, you know what you're putting into it, and how much of a certain item you're putting into it. So if you have high blood pressure, maybe you want to use less salt, or if you have diabetes, maybe you want to use less sugar. My sister, she is allergic to lima beans, and she loves canned vegetables. Like you just go to the store and get a canned vegetables, right? However, you cannot find those vegetables without lima beans in it. So her and her husband would can canned vegetables without lima beans. So they would have them all throughout the year, and it worked great because she didn't have the lima beans, but she loved canned vegetables. So the second part of this is to preserve your harvest. So for us gardeners out there, and if you have a big enough garden, at certain points of your garden season, certain things come in hard and fast, and you have an overabundance of a certain item, like tomatoes or squash or zucchini or cucumbers, and if you have a fruit trees and an orchard, you may have peaches and apricots and plums and pears and figs and all those other things that you may be growing at your place. You just don't want to be able to eat them all right now. You can only make so many pies. You can only make so much zucchini bread. You only have so much freezer space to store some of those things. So a great alternative to that is canning them. So another reason to preserve that harvest, right, is if you're a prepper or a far left or right, however that may lean to, if you're the doomsday, the world's going to end or society's going to collapse any moment, and you want to be prepared. Having food on hand is a great thing. How many of you guys have seen those Facebook pictures of Walmart showing, hey, we're out of this canned vegetables, whatever it may be, because of food shortage? That was this year. So that's not fake news, that's real. So if you've seen those, leave a comment down below. So if you believe we're truly going to have a food shortage at some point in the near future, which some people are predicting that, then canning is going to be the only way that we're going to really make it. Now, some people can food just because it's what they've always done. They grew up with their mom and dad or their grandma and grandpa or their great grandma and grandpa, and further down the line, that's what they've always done. They've had family recipes passed down from generation to generation, and they love those recipes. I can tell you for sure, I would much rather have my mother's dill relish than any other relish that you can buy at the store. However she makes it, which hopefully I'll be able to learn that this year, it is fantastic. It's great in deviled eggs, great in tuna salad, great on anything that you use pickle relish for, it's fantastic. So it's one of those things where, it just could be better than what it was store-bought. Things, we've lost some of those skills that we had as a society 2 or 3 generations ago. So it's nice to go back and learn some of these skills that our forefathers and mothers had to be able to preserve this food and be able to use this canner to be able to save some peaches and some pickles and some tomatoes and be able to have it throughout the year. That sounds awesome to me. But is it really worth it? That is the question. So if you do decide, hey, this is something I'm going to do, it is worth it to me for some of those reasons that we talked about it. So what do you need to get started? Well, first off, you're going to have a canner. So this is a pressure canner, and it can also be used as a water bath canner. So there's 2 different types of canners, a water bath and a pressure canner. So this can do both. So you'd have to have a canner, and then you'd have to have jars. So these Mason style type of jars, most people have seen this, where you got a jar with a mouth on it that you can screw down some of these lids. So you have the ring, and you have like a little sill topper, and that goes on all of the different cans. So this is a half gallon. You got your quarts, you got your pints, and you got your half pints. And not only do you have the different sizes of the jars, you got different types of mouth size. So I know these aren't the same size jar, but you could get this quart in a wide mouth or in a small mouth. So it really depends on, from what I've seen and read and try to research, depending on what you are canning. If you have to stuff a bunch of vegetables in a jar, you may want to do that with the wide mouth versus the small mouth. Or if you're doing a sauce or something a little more liquidy, this will be just fine. So really when it comes down to it, 2 can, you need a pressure canner, jars, and the 2 pieces of the lid. That's really what's required, right? Now you get into all the extra stuff you gotta have to make it all work. So when I was talking with my mom about all the supplies I needed and to get all the different tools and all those things I needed, one of the first things she said is you need stainless steel cookware. We didn't have stainless steel pots. So I got a big old pot, stainless steel, and that's to prepare some of the food to get it to the right consistency, cook it, those kind of things. Another thing that I purchased was a pot, but it has a strainer. So if you're blanching some of your food, and what blanching is you put, like, say, a peach in here, you boil it for a short period of time, and then you shock it in some ice water, and that helps that skin come off easy. So you may have to do that with your tomatoes or your peaches or whatever it may be. One of these type of pots or cooking devices is really going to help out with that. Now, these can be used throughout the year on other things, but when it comes to canning, you do need a stainless steel type of setup. So a couple other things that you are going to need is some tools. So I went on Amazon and got me a canning kit tool set. So some other tools that you're going to need: set of paring knives. So you'll be able to cut and slice and dice all of those vegetables and fruit and whatever else you're going to do. To have a good set of sharp knives, it's going to be very helpful. You know, have you some of these sieves or little metal mesh things that you can, you know, squeeze and push material through, but not let seeds or other debris through, but you may let juice and it's a little bit of pulp or something like that. Very helpful when it comes to some of the recipes. You know, good measuring devices. You know, some of the recipes, it talks about when you're using your measuring cup, make sure that your measuring cups can be, you know, scraped flat, so you have a solid, you know, cup or half cup or whatever it may be. It's evenly, every time you measure, it's going to be the same. Sometimes when you're using some of these Pyrex for those fine measurements, you may not get it right at a half a cup or a cup. So one of these devices will be a lot better in that case. But you may need some of these bigger ones or these Pyrex measuring devices for different things like liquid or maybe even fruit or something like that, that may not be as critical to get the exact quantity of whatever it is that you're measuring out. Another thing that you're gonna need is, at least bare bone, you're gonna need some kind of shredder. A grater that has different, you know, parts to it where you can get it finer. You know, you can kind of slice some things up. Now, one thing I forgot to talk about is a canning book. So I ordered the Ball Complete book for home preserving. Great book. I ordered it on Amazon. I'll link it down below. The only one they had available was the hardback with the spiral bound. They had like 3 different options in there typically, but I went through and I've kind of marked some recipes already. But this is something that really, it goes through the whole process of canning, what you should watch out for, what you need to do. And it even gives you some troubleshooting tips in the book as well. So it looks to be, and what I've heard, this is a great book. I've heard that from several different people, and this is the one they recommended. So that's why we got it. So now once you get to the point of you got your jars, you got your canner, you got all the prepping items, now you got to actually cook the stuff and prepare it. So here's just some of the items I've picked up. I still got to go to the store and pick up some sugar and I think a couple other things. But this is a pretty good selection of stuff that you're going to need. So pickling vinegar, or vinegar I think would just work. You know, there are some pre-bagged recipes or mixtures of stuff to make Polish dill pickles. Here's some bread and butter pickles. Here's one that's a cold refrigerator canner recipe. So you prepare your jars and then you stick the pickles in, pour this on it, stick it in the fridge, and you have pickles. It's a liquid, the rest of it's powder. You know, you have your pectin, so this is what makes jellies jelly or jams harden up. So you need some of that. There's a regular version and there's a low sugar version of it. You know, to keep your fruits from browning, there's some preserve that you can put on it to keep it from browning. I'm sure there's other methods other than this chemical that you can put on it. If you guys know that, leave me a comment down below. What do you guys use instead of using this fruit preserver? I'd like to know. Pickle crisper. If you don't use this, your pickles don't have that crunch like you get at store-bought pickles. So some people want that. And then of course, just pickling spices and those kind of things. Now there are a few items that I don't have on the table that are good to have while you're processing or you're canning your vegetables. You know, a food processor, a blender, a immersion blender. All 3 of those devices are really good and very handy to use. It'll definitely quicken up the process to get your items prepared, ready to go, and be canned. Now, some other items that when I was talking to my mom and some other people, these are some really good things to have, make it easier, but maybe not necessary, especially as you're starting off, but things as you grow or could make it a lot easier for you to can. My mom swears up and down on a jelly maker. She sent me a picture of it. I have to post it up here, but it's made by Ball, and it gets everything ready for your jelly to where all you have to do is put everything in here, all the ingredients that you need, press a button or do whatever it does, and then just pour them in the jar and you're ready to preserve. A mandolin. So if you don't know what a mandolin is, it's another device. It's, so this part right down here, it's a device that's kind of like this, and you slide your vegetables back and forth on it, and it makes nice even cuts. That's a tool that's very helpful to use, where you get nice even pieces of whatever vegetable or fruit that you're cutting up. That is also a very nice tool to have. Not necessary, you could use a knife or whatever, but mandolin is very helpful, I've heard. A food mill. So I've seen some of these where you can like throw in your tomatoes and it goes through this process where it dumps out all the juice and pulp, but it leaves all of the peels and seeds all on one side. That would be very helpful. Now, another thing that my mom swears up and down with, so if you're an older person, or you may have back issues, or you're just not physically strong enough to lift 50 or 60 pounds worth of pot, water, maybe some cans or jars or whatever may be inside, if you're not physically able to lift that, this device is for you, and it's electric water bath canner. I don't know if there's a pressure canner like this, but my mom uses electric water bath canner, and it sits by her sink. She can fill it up with the hose from her sink. She can turn it on, do all of her canning, and then when she's done, there's a little plug down at the bottom. She can undo that plug, and it lets all the water drain off to the sink. For her, it's a game changer because it hurts her back to try to lift this full of water and everything else to get in and out of the sink or put it on the stove or whatever it may be. So that's a game changer for her, and it helps her out, and it's able for her to can longer and to can more. So there's all different kinds of things. So hey, if I've missed a tool or an item or a necessity or maybe a good to have item, Link it down below in the comment. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that. Did I get everything, or am I missing the mark and totally missed something? So let me know, I'd appreciate it. We finally come down to the question at hand here. Is canning worth it? And really, I think it really depends on you. Is it worth it to you? You know, I talked about different reasons why some people can, or why the reasons why you may can. You know, really, you're gonna have to determine, is the investment worth it? Are you going to get enough in return for that investment? So now up front, if you don't have any of this stuff, it's a big investment when you think about it. I mean, you're talking about on a medium range, not high end, not low end, you know, $80 for a pressure canner, you know, $40 for a stainless steel pot, $30 for another pot. Some of the other tools are a little bit cheaper. Then you have the jars and the lids and everything else that goes along with it, the handbook, cookbook deal. All those have some price associated with it. Now, it is an investment, in my opinion, to where number one, you can use this throughout the year, and I can use this throughout the year just without the top on it. You know, you're cooking up a big batch of chili, that cook a big pot of chili up. Really, when it comes down to it really depends on you. Is it worth it to you? In my opinion, it is worth it for a lot of those reasons. Number one, since we have a fairly successful garden this year, we want to preserve some of those things. And some of the things that we use throughout the year, Marcia and I kind of sat down and thought about and looked at what we use the most that we could grow and preserve and store that would be worthwhile for us. You know, tomatoes, tomato sauce, diced tomatoes, stewed tomatoes. Those are what we use tomatoes for throughout, you know, the winter, and if we're talking about soups and those kind of things, that's what we use. So for us, it is worth it. You know, yes, it's an investment up front, but not only is it an investment that we think is worthwhile, it also gains us knowledge on how our forefathers did it. And if, you know, worst case scenario, we're not able to buy these things at the grocery store, we'll have some here ready and we'll be somewhat prepared for it. I don't know if we will be completely prepared at this point in our life as we move forward. So for us, definitely worth it. Leave us a comment down below. Is it worth it to you? Well guys, if you made it this far, thank you, we appreciate it. Hope you liked the video. If you haven't already, caught us on Facebook and Instagram. Our links will be down below in the description. And again, if you haven't already subscribed to that channel, there'll be a link right over here. Click it, subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And from our homestead to yours, have a blessed day, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye.